Chean Tamo, and welcome to Dulcimerica. My name is Bing Futch, and on my lap I have a brand new baby girl. She's a full craft instrument, and I call her Buttercup. It took a while to get her name. She reminds me a little bit of a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, down here with the colorings and sort of how those two great tastes that taste great together are sandwiched. But anyway, also she's just very, very sweet. And I was listening to that song, Build Me Up Buttercup, a lot when the day of naming came. So there you go. What we have basically here is a diatonic side. Not purely diatonic, because if it was purely diatonic, I wouldn't have the 6.5 fret or the 1.5 fret. On this side, it is fully chromatic. And this is a perfect illustration of the differences between the two. The chromatic scale is 12 notes. And I'm tuned DAD on both of these fretboards. So if I played from the very bottom on the bass string, you'd have D, and then as I walk all the way up to the 12th fret right here, I'm going to play 13 notes total starting with open, and then I'm going to play all 12 frets. The 12th fret right here is the octave, and the chromatic scale sounds like this. So it sounds kind of like you're walking up a flight of stairs. All of those notes are a half step apart. And guitars have the chromatic scale, pianos of course are chromatic, and dulcimers, standard dulcimers, are unusual in that they don't have all of the half steps going up. How would you name all those notes? You start off with D, open, D sharp, E, then F. E and F are a half step apart. So you could call it E sharp, but really you're talking about F. F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, or B flat, B, C is next. Again, B and C are a half step apart, C sharp, and then finally at the octave D. 12 chromatic notes. So notice that all of the half steps are the narrow spaces. And as you come over here to the diatonic side, this is exactly the same length fretboard. It's actually a 29.25 inch. Yeah, I know, stretching the fingers out. But notice as we go across here, this is the 3rd fret on the mountain dulcimer, and then you'll see directly across the way the 5th fret on the chromatic side. They're exactly the same distance, but notice as you go up, just above this note, which is G, you have G sharp. So that's G, and then to G sharp is a half step, and then to A is a whole step from G to A. So you take 2 half steps, you put them together, and you get a whole step. So look what happens over here. We've taken the G sharp out of the picture. That fret, the 6th fret on the chromatic side, has been taken out of this equation, and now we have a wide space. That wide space is a whole step on the diatonic mountain dulcimer. So there's G again, G over here, G over here. But instead of having the half step of G sharp to A, we simply have G to A. So 2 half steps make a whole step, and all the wide spaces on your mountain dulcimer are all whole steps. Now we can get a G sharp if we bend the note right here, starting here. We can get the G sharp and then come up and get the A. So if you bend the note just before any of the half steps, you can get the note that's missing. Just in case you're trying to figure out a tune and you only have one note you need to find, you can bend that note and get that note. So basically, the diatonic side is a series of whole steps and half steps, much like the major scale. The major scale is made up of 5 whole steps and 2 half steps. And the sequence is whole step, and then a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and then a half step. In the case of the D major scale, starting from the bottom on the bass string, we'd go from D to whole step. Remember, these two equal together a whole step. Or if you have a normal dulcimer without the 1.5 fret, you know that the 2nd fret is a wide space. Then we go up to a half step, then to a whole step, to a whole step. These two count as a whole step if you don't hit that note there. And then finally the half step at the end. So that's how you find your way through the chromatic side by combining and creating that sequence of notes, that relationship of notes to each other called intervals. So starting from here, D open, we go whole step, half step, then whole step, whole step, whole step, and half step. So as diatonic mountain dulcimer players, we've gotten quite used to playing in and around a 7-note scale, whether it be major or minor. But that all is related to, it is in relation to, the 12-note chromatic scale. So it's not really that difficult to take what you're doing. I thought I saw a cat in the window, sorry. It's not difficult to take what you're doing on the diatonic side and translate it over to the chromatic side. Your chord shapes are still the same if you're tuned in DAD. For example, a G chord on this side, 3-3-5, translates the same way over here. You're just going to have additional half steps that you're going to have to leap over. So I'm going to carry it directly across the strings over here like this. Still in an L shape, still the same basic distance apart, but now we are compensating for the extra half steps that are in there. What's cool about the chromatic scale and the chromatic side is that we can now take this G major, and we can play a G minor just by taking that middle note, the third, and taking it down a half step like this. Here goes down a half step. So from B to B flat is what we're doing as we play B, B flat. So I like having that ability, and that's why I've really embraced playing the chromatic mountain dulcimer. I would advise it, and I wouldn't advise it for everybody to play strictly chromatic dulcimer, and I'm going to love diatonic dulcimer for as long as I possibly live, but I like being able to play the additional cool notes. One thing I would mention, however, is that since I'm stretching for lower tone, greater sustain, I'm going for longer and longer vibrating string lengths, or VSLs. But if you're going to start playing chromatic dulcimer, it might be easier for you to go and start with a 25-inch fretboard length, and that way you'll know for certain if your fingers can handle skipping over some of those additional frets. The dulcimer is quite forgiving in the fact that even though you're aiming to be just to the left of the fret when you're putting your fingers down on the fretboard, the dulcimer is forgiving in that you can also move down from the just to the left of the fret and be somewhere in the middle, or even down here, and it'll still work out. The problem with that on the chromatic side is that as soon as you start moving down, you're going to start getting into other notes. So in order to make sure you know that stretch and can make that stretch, I would start off with a 25 or even a 24 VSL, and then start working up as your fingers begin to stretch and get used to the sound. Nowheremusic.blogspot.com. I am out of here, and I'll be in Texas next week, weather permitting, and we'll see you there. Thank you for watching, and to all of our new subscribers, thank you very much and welcome. We'll see you next time. Shonabish.